I noticed it the first time we sat alone in the same room. Not because she tried to get my attention, but because she didn't. The way she moved, slow and self-assured, made the rest of the world seem loud and clumsy. I remember pretending to scroll my phone, but I kept catching myself listening to her footsteps, waiting for her to come closer without knowing why. She was in her mid-40s, confident in the way someone becomes after years of breaking and rebuilding. It wasn't the kind of confidence that demanded attention. It was quieter, more dangerous. She carried it in her eyes, in the way she held her chin when she thought no one was watching. And I, in my early 20s, tried to hide how my heartbeat reacted just from being near her. There wasn't supposed to be anything between us. We both knew that. Yet the universe seemed to keep shrinking the space we shared. That evening, the house was quiet, too quiet. It felt like even the walls were waiting for something. I sat on the arm of a chair, pretending to look at a magazine, trying not to show how much I noticed her. She walked past me, close enough that her perfume curled around my senses, warm, soft, something like jasmine and memory. My throat tightened without warning. "Are you comfortable?" she asked, barely looking my way, her voice steady enough to sound casual. "Yeah," I answered too quickly, then immediately regretted how eager it sounded. She smiled to herself, like she'd heard every emotion I was trying to hide. She sat on the sofa across from me at first, legs crossed, hands folded neatly in her lap. It was safe like that. Distant. But then, without a reason I could name, she shifted, repositioning herself, leaning forward, elbows to knees, attention directly on me. The air changed when she did that. Suddenly I didn't know what to do with my hands, or whether I should breathe quietly or deeply or not at all. "Long day?" she asked. "Kind of," I said, trying to sound relaxed and failing miserably. She nodded, eyes lingering on me for a second too long. "You look tired, or distracted." "Distracted." God, if she only knew. She stood again and walked toward the coffee table. As she leaned over, her hand lightly brushed mine, not accidentally, not obviously intentional. Just long enough for electricity to pass between us and then vanish like it never happened. My heart betrayed me. I know it did. I could feel it in my chest, too loud, too obvious. She settled on the sofa next to me this time, not across. There was still space, but not enough. Not for safety. Not for ignorance. My knee almost touched hers, and that tiny gap became the loudest thing in the room. I tried to speak, something harmless, something normal, but the words disappeared the second she looked at me. Her eyes weren't just beautiful. They were searching, as if she was trying to decide something she didn't want to say out loud. The lamp beside us flickered softly, casting warm golden light across her hair, her skin. The moment felt suspended, like the universe was holding its breath. She opened her mouth like she was about to say something important. Something that would change everything. My pulse stumbled. But before she could speak, the sound of the front door unlocking sliced through the silence. She froze. I froze. Our eyes locked, not with panic, but with something raw, something we weren't ready to name. And then the door started to open. The door opened, snapping everything back into place. She stood up too quickly, smoothing her blouse, her voice suddenly practiced and polite. I stayed seated, trying to look unaffected, pretending my pulse wasn't still caught in my throat. A friend stepped in, laughing, talking loudly, not noticing anything. But I noticed how she avoided looking at me for the rest of the evening, and how, every few minutes, she still did. Later, when everyone left and silence returned, she stayed in the kitchen rinsing a glass. I lingered by the doorway like I had a reason. She didn't speak at first, just let the running water cover the ache between us. "You don't have to keep waiting here," she said quietly. "I'm not waiting," I answered, too fast. And the corner of her mouth curved again, like she could read everything I tried to hide. She dried her hands slowly, deliberately. "You're young. You don't understand yet what these things cost." That was the first time she hinted at fear. Not fear of me, fear of what wanting something could take away. I leaned on the counter, keeping my distance. You talk like you already paid the price. Her hand paused mid-movement. That was when she told me, not directly, not dramatically, but with fragments. A marriage that ended with silence. A love that slipped away not because of betrayal but because of exhaustion. She'd learned to live without expecting anything from anyone. She didn't say she was lonely. She didn't have to. I didn't push. She didn't need comfort, she needed someone who listened. After that night, things became different without us acknowledging it. I started noticing tiny things, how she tucked her hair behind her ear when she felt exposed, how she looked out the window when something affected her too much. She started hovering near me longer, asking small questions she didn't really need answers to. One afternoon, we sat on the balcony as the sun dipped low. She wrapped her arms around herself, even though it wasn't cold. I offered my sweater without thinking. She didn't take it. Instead, she just leaned a little closer, close enough that I felt her breath when she spoke. You remind me of who I used to be, she whispered. Is that a good thing? I asked. I don't know, she said, and her laugh was soft but aching. She reached for the railing, and her hand brushed mine again. Only this time, she didn't move it away immediately. Her thumb grazed my skin, a slow, unsure stroke that felt like a confession disguised as an accident. I could feel her breath catch at her own boldness. We both looked forward, pretending neither of us noticed, but neither of us pulled away. The moment stretched. Her shoulder rested against mine, tentative but real. I didn't speak. She didn't either. Silence did the talking for us, telling us what we weren't ready to admit. Just before she finally pulled her hand away, her fingers curled slightly, like she didn't want to let go. And that tiny hesitation, that single second where she held on just a little too long, tied us together in a way words never could. Her hand brushed against mine again, maybe by accident, maybe not. I didn't move. I couldn't. Her skin was warm, soft, and for a second she looked up at me like she was terrified of how natural it felt. Then she pulled her hand away too quickly, as if the small touch had burned her. The shift in her voice told me everything. Something inside her was changing, something she was fighting. We kept talking, pretending nothing was happening, but the space between us felt charged, too full of everything we weren't saying. She laughed at something I said, and her fingers instinctively reached for my arm before stopping midair. She hesitated, then placed her hand gently on my shoulder, and left it there a moment too long. My heartbeat wasn't subtle. I knew she could feel it, even without touching my chest. A notification buzzed on her phone, snapping her attention away. Her hand left my shoulder. She stood up, as if distance could fix everything tearing her apart inside. I stayed seated, watching her pace slowly across the room, her arms folded tight like she was holding herself together. It's getting complicated, she whispered, more to herself than to me. I didn't answer. I couldn't find a safe response. Every answer I had was dangerous. She ran her fingers through her hair, frustrated, conflicted. You're younger. People would talk. They always talk. I wanted to tell her I didn't care. That it didn't matter. That I would take every look, every rumor, every judgment if it meant I could stay this close to her. But I didn't say it, because she already knew. And because hearing it out loud might break the restraint she was clinging to. She finally sat down again, not where she had been, but right next to me. Too close. Close enough that her perfume wrapped around me again. Close enough that her arm pressed into mine, and neither of us moved away. Her breathing deepened, slow and shaky. Mine mirrored it. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of everything we wanted and everything we tried to resist. I turned toward her, and she looked back instantly, like she had been waiting for me. Her eyes dropped to my lips before she caught herself. She swallowed hard. We shouldn't. I didn't move, but something in my expression must have given away how badly I wanted her, because her resolve flickered. She leaned in, only an inch, maybe less, close enough for her breath to brush my cheek. I could feel how warm it was. I could hear how uneven it had become. I leaned in too, slow, careful, scared to break the moment. Our faces were almost touching. Her eyelashes trembled. Her hand slid toward mine, fingertips grazing my skin again, this time deliberately. And just as her lips parted, just as the world narrowed to only the two of us, a sharp knock hit the door. We froze, inches apart, breathing the same air, either of us ready to pull away, yet knowing we might have to. But neither of us moved. Not this time. Not anymore. The knock on the door faded, but the damage was done, not because the moment was lost, but because we both realized how close we had come to crossing a line we could never return from. She stood up quickly, pacing again, but this time it wasn't hesitation. It was panic. Want. Fear. All tangled together. "I can't do this," she said under her breath. "I can't keep pretending like I don't feel anything." The confession stunned me. Not because I didn't know, I had felt it in every look, every touch, but because hearing her say it out loud shattered whatever distance she thought she could keep. She turned toward me, her eyes shining with frustration and longing. "You're younger. I've lived more, lost more. I should be smarter than this." I stayed silent. I knew she didn't need logic, she needed to be heard, to be understood, to be wanted without apology. Her voice broke. "I wake up thinking about you. I go to sleep trying not to." She pressed a trembling hand against her lips, like she was afraid of saying more. Something in me snapped, not in anger, but in the fear of losing her to her own self-doubt. I stepped toward her. Slowly. Carefully. Giving her every chance to step back. She didn't. Her breathing hitched as I reached up and brushed a strand of hair away from her face, letting my fingers linger just long enough for her to feel the intention behind it. Her eyes fluttered shut at the touch, like she had been waiting for it longer than she could admit. "Tell me to stop," I whispered, my voice low against her ear. She didn't move. Didn't speak. She just leaned forward, her forehead resting briefly against my shoulder, not in weakness, but because holding everything inside had become too heavy. Her hands clutched the front of my shirt, knuckles white, pulling me closer before she even realized she was doing it. Her body pressed against mine, her warmth dissolving every fear except the one that said this might not last. "You have no idea what you're doing to me," she breathed. I smiled, not out of pride, but out of relief. "I do. Because you're doing the same thing to me." She let out a shaky laugh, caught between wanting and resisting. Her fingers slid to my collar, gripping tightly. "If I let this happen, I won't be able to stop." I lowered my forehead to hers, close enough that our lips were one breath apart. "Then don't stop." Her eyes darkened, her lips parting, her breath warm and uneven against my mouth. Her hand slid up to the back of my neck, pulling me even closer, her body molded against mine. Everything, days of restraint, weeks of silent longing, crashed into this single moment. She whispered, almost afraid of the truth in her own voice. "Say you want me." "I do," I answered without hesitation. "More than anything." Her lips hovered over mine, trembling, so close we could feel them brush without fully touching. And just as she finally leaned in, just as the kiss was about to happen, a voice came from the hallway, calling her name. She froze in my arms, pulse racing, breath tangled with mine, and the moment hung between us, too big to hide now, too powerful to take back. She didn't let go of me right away when the voice called her name from the hallway. For a second, a dangerous, suspended second, she held on as if her body refused to obey what reality demanded. Then she pulled back, breathless, eyes wide, fingers trembling as they slid off my shirt. The door opened before she could compose herself. It was her sister, holding her phone, face pale, eyes flicking between us with too much intuition to ignore. "You need to see this," she said quietly. The phone was handed to her, but her eyes were on me, not the screen. She took it only because she had to. A message thread open, every text between her and me. Every late-night call. Every detail. Screenshotted. Sent anonymously. Someone new. Her throat tightened as she scrolled, faster, almost frantic. Who would do this? Her sister didn't accuse her. That almost made it worse. You're not doing anything wrong, are you? She whispered, though the question hung sharp and heavy in the air. Silence answered. I stepped forward instinctively, wanting to protect her, from judgment, from fear, from herself. But she stepped back. Not because she didn't want me near, but because she wanted it too much, and too visibly. Her sister left quietly, shutting the door behind her. It didn't help. She sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at the carpet like it might explain something. Someone's been watching us, she said, not angry, not scared, but exposed. Someone has been paying attention. I knelt in front of her, trying to catch her eyes. Then we talk to them, figure out who. No, she cut in. The problem isn't who sent it. The problem is that there's something to send. I flinched, and she noticed. Regret flickered across her face. That's not what I meant, she said softly, reaching toward me but stopping mid-motion, her hand suspended in the air. I didn't think it showed how much we. Her voice cracked, unfinished. I took her hand anyway, threading my fingers through hers. She didn't pull away. We can't pretend anymore, I said. She looked up sharply, and something changed in her eyes. Not denial. Not panic. Something much more dangerous. Acceptance. She leaned in, her forehead resting lightly against mine, her fingers curling against the back of my neck with a tenderness she wasn't trying to hide anymore. If I choose this, she whispered, her breath trembling against my lips, I choose you. Fully. No excuses. No secrets. No pulling back when things get scary. Her words shook something loose in me, something that had been waiting, hungry and patient. Then choose, I whispered. Her breath hitched, her lips brushing mine without meaning to, or maybe meaning to entirely. I already did. She breathed. Her phone buzzed in her hand, a new message flashing across the screen. She didn't look at it. She let it drop onto the blanket, her eyes locked on mine, her body leaning closer instead of away. No more doubt. No more pretending. She slid off the bed until she was kneeling in front of me, mirroring the way I had been kneeling moments earlier, equal now. Vulnerable. Exposed. Chosen. We deal with whatever comes, she whispered. But we do it together. There was no going back after that. The world outside could wait, because the decision had already been made. She didn't look away when I lifted her chin. She didn't hide anymore. Every wall she ever built around herself was gone, and for the first time, she let me see all of it, the fear, the wanting, the part of her that had been fighting this from the moment we met. The room was quiet, too quiet, like even the air didn't want to interrupt. We can still stop, she whispered, though her body leaned toward me instead of away. Her breath touched my lips before her words finished. No one would blame us if we walked away right now. But that wasn't what either of us wanted. My forehead brushed hers, light, accidental, then not accidental at all. Her hands slid up my arms, slow, unsure, like she expected me to disappear if she touched too firmly. I didn't move. I wanted her to feel that I was staying. You're younger, she said, trying to reason with herself instead of with me. You have your whole life in front of you. I can't be the one who takes something from you. I shook my head. You're not taking anything. You're giving something I didn't even know I was missing. Her eyes closed for a second, not to hide, but because the words hit her somewhere she kept guarded. When she opened them again, something had shifted. No denial. No escape plan. Just truth. Still, she hesitated. If we cross this line, I can't go back to pretending you're just someone I care about. I moved closer, just enough so our knees touched, enough to feel the electricity run through both of us. I don't want you to care, I murmured. I want you to choose. She exhaled, shaky, overwhelmed, and her fingers curled into the fabric of my shirt, pulling me a fraction closer without meaning to. Her lips hovered near mine, barely apart, her breathing uneven and warm. I do choose you, she whispered. The sentence could have ended there, but she wasn't finished. But I'm terrified of how much. Her voice broke, not from sadness, but from giving up the last of her restraint. The fear didn't push her away this time. It pushed her closer. Her nose brushed mine, soft and slow. The kind of closeness you don't back away from. No rush. No urgency. Just inevitability. My hand slid to the side of her face, not controlling, not demanding, simply holding, steadying her. She leaned into it like she'd been waiting years for someone to touch her gently, without asking her to shrink or soften or apologize for who she was. Everything else, age gap, messages, judgment, went silent. Just us. She wasn't trembling anymore. She was certain. If I love you, she breathed, I need to love you without hiding. Her confession wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was the kind of truth that didn't require volume. Her forehead rested against mine again, our lips close enough to feel each word. And if you walk away now, she whispered, I'll let you go. But I'll never stop waiting for you to come back. There was no doubt left. No fear strong enough to separate us. I didn't step away. She didn't either. And in that closeness, breath against breath, heartbeat against heartbeat, we finally understood each other completely. Whatever came next, we were done running. We didn't rush. We didn't jump into anything dramatic or movie-like. We just stayed close, breathing the same air, holding on as though the world outside could wait a little longer. Her hand slid into mine first. Slow, careful, as if she was afraid she might scare me away if she touched too quickly. I squeezed back, not too tightly, just enough to tell her she didn't need to be afraid anymore. And something in her shoulders relaxed, the way a person softens when they finally stop fighting their own heart. I kept trying to convince myself this wasn't real, she said quietly, looking down instead of at me. But you never made me feel foolish for wanting more. Her voice wasn't dramatic, it was tired and sincere, the kind of honesty that only appears when a person is done pretending. I brushed a stray strand of hair from her face, the way I'd wanted to so many times before but never dared. She leaned into my touch like she had been waiting for that tiny gesture longer than she would ever admit. I didn't know what I was missing until I met you, I said. And I don't want to forget how it feels. She laughed softly, not amused, not embarrassed, just relieved. For once, she didn't second-guess the happiness in front of her. We ended up sitting on the couch, side by side, shoulders touching, our hands still locked like we both feared letting go might break the spell. No dramatic kiss. No frantic declarations. Just warmth. Her warmth, finally shared instead of hidden. I rested my forehead gently against hers, and everything about that moment felt more intimate than anything physical ever could. You're not just a chapter in my life, she whispered. You're the part one didn't know I was saving space for. I don't know if my reply was perfect, but it was real. I'm not going anywhere. Her eyes softened, not with doubt this time, but with belief. Real belief. For the first time since we met, there was no hesitation. No fear of judgment. No pretending this connection was temporary. Our age difference didn't sit between us like an unspoken warning anymore. It had simply become one detail in a story that was so much bigger than rules or expectations. She rested her head on my shoulder. I wrapped an arm around her, and she didn't pull away, not even a little. Her breathing slowed, matching mine, and the quiet didn't feel heavy or uncertain anymore. It felt safe. It felt right. It felt like we had already chosen each other long before either of us spoke it out loud. We didn't need anything else that night, not explanations, not excuses. Just closeness. Her fingers tracing lazy circles on the back of my hand. My thumb stroking hers in return. The kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Whatever the world outside might think, whatever challenges would find us later, we would face them together. Not secretly. Not fearfully. Just honestly. This wasn't the beginning of something impossible. It was the beginning of something real. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?